3 years. That's how long I thought I knew Emma Williams. 3 years of shared dreams, late-night conversations about our future, and saving every penny for the house we were going to buy together in the suburbs of Denver. I trusted her with everything, including the password to our joint savings account that held $28,000 of our combined hopes and sacrifices. What I didn't know was that she had already given someone else the password to her heart, and he was helping her drain both our account and our relationship dry. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning I discovered the truth started like any other Tuesday in October. I was rushing to catch the light rail to my job at TechFlow Solutions when I got a text from our bank about a low balance alert on our joint account. First, I thought it was a mistake. We had been religiously depositing money into that account for 18 months, dreaming of the day we'd have enough for a down payment on our starter home. Emma had even created a vision board with pictures of white picket fences and cozy kitchens that she'd stuck to our refrigerator. Standing on the platform waiting for my train, I opened the banking app with trembling fingers. The number that stared back at me made my stomach drop to the concrete beneath my feet. $347. That was all that remained of our shared future. $27,653 had vanished from our account over the past 6 weeks, withdrawn in chunks that I had never authorized and never seen. My first instinct was to call Emma immediately, convinced there had been some terrible mistake or that her identity had been stolen. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail, her cheerful voice telling me she was probably in a meeting and would call back soon. I tried again. Same result. By the time I reached my office building, a cold dread had settled in my chest like a stone. I couldn't concentrate on a single line of code that day. Every few minutes I'd refresh the banking app, hoping the numbers would magically change back to what they should be. I sent Emma 3 texts asking her to call me urgently about something important, but got no response. When lunchtime arrived, I decided to drive to her office at Creative Pulse Marketing instead of eating. The receptionist at Creative Pulse, a young woman with bright pink hair named Chloe, greeted me with a confused expression when I asked for Emma. "Oh, Jake, right? Emma's boyfriend? She's actually been out of the office for the past week. Said she had some kind of family emergency in California. Didn't she tell you?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Emma had left for work every morning, as usual. She'd kissed me goodbye, complained about her difficult client presentations, and even brought home takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant just 2 nights ago, claiming she was too exhausted from work to cook. I managed to mumble something about mixed communication and practically ran back to my car. Sitting in the parking lot, I called Emma's phone again. This time it went straight to voicemail without ringing. She had turned it off.
All the pieces of love.
A horrible puzzle were starting to form in my mind, but I refused to put them together. There had to be an explanation. Emma loved me. We were planning to spend our lives together. Just last month, we'd spent an entire weekend touring open houses and discussing which neighborhoods had the best schools for the kids we'd have someday. That evening, I sat in our shared apartment, staring at the front door, waiting for her to come home with some reasonable explanation for everything. At 8 o'clock, Tyler, my best friend since college, showed up with pizza and beer. Taking one look at my face and settling in for what he clearly recognized was going to be a long night. "Talk to me, man," Tyler said, setting the pizza box on our coffee table and cracking open a beer. "You look like someone died." I told him everything. The missing money, Emma's lies about work, the sick feeling in my gut that was growing stronger by the hour. Tyler listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "Jake," he said finally, "when's the last time you actually saw Emma outside of your apartment? Like, when did you two go out together somewhere public?" The question caught me off guard. I tried to think back, and the realization was devastating. We hadn't been on a real date in over 2 months. Every time I suggested dinner out or going to a movie, Emma claimed she was too tired from work or had plans with her girlfriends. She'd been working late constantly, or so she said. Weekend plans were always postponed or canceled. I'd attributed it to her being stressed about a big promotion she was supposedly up for. But now, I think she's seeing someone else. Whispered, the words feeling like broken glass in my throat. Tyler nodded grimly, and I think that someone else is expensive. We spent the next hour going through our shared laptop, looking for any clues Emma might have left behind. What we found was worse than I could have imagined. In her browser history, hastily deleted but still recoverable, were searches for luxury hotels in Denver, expensive restaurants I'd never heard of, and most damning of all, jewelry stores specializing in men's watches. Emma had never bought me a watch. In 3 years together, her gifts to me had been thoughtful but modest. Books, homemade dinners, the occasional video game. But someone was receiving expensive gifts purchased with our money, our shared dreams converted into tokens of affection. For another man, Tyler found the smoking gun in Emma's email, which she'd foolishly left logged in on our shared computer. An email confirmation from Blackstone Hotel for a weekend reservation under the name Emma Williams and Ryan Martinez for the exact dates 3 weeks ago when she'd told me she was visiting her sick grandmother in Grand Junction. Ryan Martinez. The name hit me like a sledgehammer. I knew exactly who he was. Emma's coworker at Creative Pulse, the smooth-talking account executive she'd mentioned casually a few times over the past several months. Just a colleague, she'd always said when his name came up. You'd probably find him annoying. He's one of those guys who thinks he's God's gift to marketing. But apparently Emma didn't find him annoying at all. The weekend Emma was supposedly caring for her grandmother. She'd been 300 miles away in a luxury hotel suite that cost more per night than I made in a week. The room service charges alone from that weekend would have covered our grocery bill for a month. I felt physically sick. Tyler had to rush me to the bathroom where I threw up everything I'd eaten that day. When I emerged, pale and shaking, he was holding a printout of our bank statements with transactions highlighted in yellow marker. Jake, you need to see this pattern, he said gently. Look at the dates. Emma had been systematically draining our account for weeks, but she'd been clever about it. Never huge amounts at once, and always on days when she knew I'd be busy at work or distracted. The withdrawals coincided perfectly with her mysterious new schedule of late nights and weekend plans. She'd been funding an entire secret relationship. With our money while lying to my face every single day. The front door opened at 10:30 that night, and Emma walked in looking radiant. Her hair was freshly styled, her makeup perfect despite supposedly coming home from a long day at work. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Something that looked expensive and definitely not appropriate for a day at the office she hadn't actually attended. Hey, baby, she said, bending to kiss my cheek, as if everything was completely normal. Sorry I'm so late. Work was absolutely insane today. I looked up at her. This woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, and saw a complete stranger. How was your grandmother? I asked quietly. Emma's face went blank for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. My grandmother? The one in Grand Junction who was sick 3 weeks ago? The reason you had to go out of town for the weekend, she laughed, but it sounded forced and hollow. Oh, that. She's much better now. Why do you ask? Tyler cleared his throat from the kitchen where he'd been pretending to clean up the pizza boxes. Maybe because you were actually at the Blackstone Hotel with Ryan Martinez that weekend. The color drained from Emma's face so quickly I thought she might faint. She looked back and forth between Tyler and me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I can explain, she said finally. Can you explain $27,000 too? I asked, holding up the bank statements. Because that's how much you've stolen from our joint account over the past 6 weeks. Emma sank into the chair across from me, all pretense finally abandoned. For a moment, I thought she might cry, might apologize, might somehow make this right. Instead, she lifted her chin defiantly. It's not stolen, she said. It's my money. 2, I contributed to that account. For our house, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. For our future together. Not to finance your affair. You don't understand, Emma said, standing up and beginning to pace. Ryan and I, we have something special. Something real. He makes me feel alive in ways you never could, Jake. He's ambitious. He's going places. He's not content to just write code in some cubicle for the rest of his life. Her words cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. So you decided to use our money to impress him? He's going to pay it back, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. He's got this amazing investment opportunity coming up. We're going to make way more than $27,000. Tyler laughed bitterly. Emma, listen to yourself. You sound like every person who's ever fallen for a con artist. Ryan's not a con artist, Emma snapped. He's sophisticated. He knows about fine dining, about art, about things that matter. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. When was the last time you took me somewhere nicer than Olive Garden, Jake?
Oh.
When was the last time you bought me jewelry or surprised me with something extravagant? When was the last time I could afford to? I shot back, because I was saving every penny for our future. The future you've been selling off piece by piece to buy another man's attention. We argued for another hour, but it was pointless. Emma wasn't sorry. She wasn't even really trying to defend herself anymore. She was just angry that she'd been caught. She packed a bag that night, telling me she was going to stay with her sister Amanda while we figured things out. But I knew she was going to Ryan's place. I knew our relationship was over, had probably been over for months while I was still believing in us. The next morning I called in sick to work and spent the day staring at the walls of our apartment, trying to figure out how I'd missed all the signs. Emma's new clothes, her sudden interest in expensive wine, her mysterious schedule changes. I'd been so focused on our future that I'd completely missed our present falling apart. Tyler came by after work with Chinese takeout and a bottle of whiskey. You know what you have to do, right? He said, after we'd eaten in silence. End it officially, I said. Oh, I think she already did that for me. No, Tyler said. Well, yes, that too. But I mean about the money. You can't just let her get away with stealing from you. It's a crime, Jake. You could press charges. The thought hadn't even occurred to me. I was so heartbroken about the betrayal that I hadn't considered the legal implications. Emma had systematically stolen thousands of dollars from our joint account, money I had worked overtime and weekends to earn. Money I'd sacrificed for, skipping dinners out in new clothes, walking to work instead of taking the train to save. On transportation costs. I don't want to hurt her, I said weakly. She already hurt you, Tyler replied. She destroyed your trust, stole your money, and apparently never thought twice about it. You think Ryan Martinez is going to stick around when the money runs out? You think he's going to pay you back? Come on, man. You're smarter than this. That night, lying alone in the bed Emma and I had shared for 2 years, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to let Emma and Ryan profit from my pain. I definitely wasn't going to sit around Denver waiting for my broken heart to heal while they lived it up on my dime. I'd been offered a job 3 months earlier with a startup company in Austin, Texas. The position came with a significant pay raise and the opportunity to work on cutting-edge artificial intelligence projects. I'd turned it down because Emma didn't want to leave Denver, said all her career connections were here. But Emma's career connections weren't my problem anymore. The next morning I called Marcus Chen, the CEO of the Austin startup, hoping the position was still available. Not only was it still open, but Marcus was thrilled to hear from me. They'd been having trouble finding someone with my specific skill set in machine learning algorithms. When can you start? Marcus asked. How about next Monday? I replied. While I was planning my escape from Denver and the ruins of my relationship, Emma was apparently planning something entirely different. She came by the apartment that Thursday while I was at work, using her key to let herself in. I only knew because Tyler, who'd been staying with me to make sure I wasn't alone, happened to come home early and caught her in the act. According to Tyler, Emma wasn't there to collect more of her belongings or to apologize. She was there to take things that belonged to both of us. The laptop we'd bought together, the expensive coffee maker we'd received as a housewarming gift, even the television we'd purchased with money from our joint account before she'd started her stealing spree. She said it was only fair, Tyler told me when I got home from work. Said she deserved compensation for all the time she'd wasted on you. That's when I knew Emma wasn't just unfaithful. She was completely delusional. In her mind, she was the victim in this situation. She'd convinced herself that our 3-year relationship had been some kind of burden she'd heroically endured, and that Ryan Martinez was her reward for suffering through it. I changed the locks that night and started packing for Austin. I didn't tell Emma I was leaving. I didn't owe her that courtesy. Instead, I focused on the future, on the new job waiting for me, on the possibility that somewhere in Texas, I might find someone who actually valued honesty and commitment. The hardest part wasn't leaving Emma. By that point, the woman I'd fallen in love with felt like a stranger anyway. The hardest part was leaving Tyler, my rock through the worst week of my life. But he understood. Go build something amazing, he told me as we loaded my car on Sunday morning. And when you're ready, maybe I'll come visit and see what Austin's all about. I drove away from Denver with everything I owned packed into my Honda Civic, leaving behind the apartment where Emma and I had planned our fake future in the city where I'd learned that loving someone completely doesn't guarantee they'll love you back. In my rearview mirror, I watched the mountains disappear, and with them, the last chapter of my life, as someone who trusted too easily and forgave too quickly. What I didn't know as I drove toward Austin that October morning was that Emma's story with Ryan Martinez was about to take a turn that would make my heartbreak look like a minor inconvenience. I also didn't know that in just 6 months, I'd meet someone who would show me what real love actually looked like. But those discoveries were still ahead of me. For now, I was just a guy driving toward a new life, trying to forget the password to a joint account that had been emptied by someone who'd already given her heart's password to someone else. Little did I know I was about to give Emma the password to something much more permanent than our savings account. I was about to give her the password to Single Life, and she was going to find out just how expensive that access would be. Austin hit me like a warm embrace after the cold reality of Denver. The city buzzed with an energy I'd never experienced before, filled with food trucks serving Korean barbecue tacos, live music spilling out of every bar, and young professionals who seemed genuinely excited about their work. My new apartment was a sleek 1-bedroom in the South by Southwest district, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in more sunlight than our old place in Denver ever had. Marcus Chen and the team at Nexus AI welcomed me like I'd been working there for years. The office occupied 2 floors of a converted warehouse, with exposed brick walls, standing desks, and a coffee bar that would have made Emma's pretentious taste buds sing. But I wasn't thinking about Emma anymore, at least not constantly. I was thinking about machine learning algorithms and neural networks and the exciting project Marcus had assigned me on my first day. We're developing predictive software for small businesses, Marcus explained as he walked me through the open concept workspace. Think of it as a crystal ball that can tell restaurant owners when to order more ingredients or help retail stores predict which products will sell best next season. Your background in pattern recognition is exactly what we need to make this thing revolutionary. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely excited about something. This wasn't just coding for the sake of coding. This was building something that could actually help people make better decisions about their livelihoods. I threw myself into the work with an intensity that surprised even me, staying late not because I had to, but because I wanted to see what breakthrough might come next. My colleagues were a mix of brilliant minds from all over the country. Sarah Kim had left Google to join the startup because she believed in the vision. Marcus Rodriguez, no relation to the other Martinez I was trying to forget, had been a data scientist at Facebook before deciding he wanted to work somewhere his innovations wouldn't get buried in corporate bureaucracy. And then there was the design team, led by a woman named Maya Patel, whose presentations about user interface psychology were so engaging they made me actually look forward to Monday morning meetings. Maya was different from anyone I'd ever met. Where Emma had been obsessed with appearing sophisticated and worldly, Maya was genuinely curious about everything. She asked questions about my algorithms not to seem smart, but because she actually wanted to understand how data could be transformed into intuitive visual experiences for users. She wore vintage band t-shirts and jeans with paint stains from her weekend hobby of restoring old furniture. And when she laughed at my terrible programming jokes, it sounded completely genuine. You know, she said one Friday afternoon, as we were both working late on a presentation for potential investors, I've never met someone who can make database optimization sound exciting. Either you're a really good teacher, or I'm a really good student. Probably a little of both, I replied, surprised by how easy it was to talk to her. Though I have to admit, your user interface designs make my boring back-end code look like art. I never thought about how the visual presentation of data could actually change how people understand it. We started eating lunch together regularly. Initially talking about work, but gradually sharing more personal stories. Maya had grown up in Phoenix, studied design at Arizona State, and moved to Austin because she wanted to work for companies that were building the future instead of just maintaining the past. She'd never been married, had dated seriously a few times, but never found someone who shared her passion for creating things that mattered. "What about you?" she asked one day as we sat in Zilker Park eating food truck tacos. "I know you moved here from Denver, but you never talk about what made you decide to leave." I'd been dreading this conversation, but also knowing it would come eventually. Maya deserved honesty, especially if our friendship was going to develop into something more, which I found myself hoping it would. So I told her everything. The joint account, Emma's affair, the lies and the betrayal, and the $27,000 that had vanished into another man's wallet. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious as the story unfolded. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, processing what I'd shared. "Jake," she said finally, "I'm so sorry that happened to you." "Can I tell you something? The way you handled it? Picking yourself up and building a new life instead of wallowing in bitterness? That takes real strength. A lot of people would have let something like that destroy them. Some days I'm not sure it didn't destroy me," I admitted. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone completely again." "Trust isn't about giving someone the power to hurt you," Maya said thoughtfully. "It's about believing they won't want to use that power. Emma wanted to hurt you because she was selfish and immature, but not everyone is Emma." As winter turned to spring in Austin, Maya and I grew closer. She introduced me to her favorite hiking trails in the hill country, taught me how to refinish furniture in her garage workshop, and showed me parts of the city I never would have discovered on my own. I introduced her to the satisfaction of solving complex coding problems. I took her to see the weird art installations that Austin was famous for, and slowly began to believe that maybe Tyler had been right. Maybe there really were people in the world who valued honesty and commitment. Maya never pushed for more than I was ready to give. When I told her I needed to take things slowly, she understood without making me feel broken or damaged. When I had bad days where Emma's betrayal still stung, Maya distracted me with new projects or adventures without making me feel like I had to pretend everything was fine. 6 months after arriving in Austin, I got a text from Tyler that changed everything. Emma and Ryan's relationship had imploded spectacularly, according to Tyler, who'd heard the story from Lisa. Emma's friend who'd grown disgusted with the whole situation. Ryan had never intended their relationship to be serious. He'd been using Emma's access to our joint account to fund his own lifestyle while also dating at least 2 other women Emma didn't know about. The investment opportunity he kept promising her was apparently a total scam, Tyler wrote. It convinced her to max out her credit cards too, telling her they'd make millions together. Now she's in debt up to her eyeballs, living back with her parents, and Ryan has completely disappeared. Changed his number, quit his job at Creative Pulse, and moved to California without telling her where he was going. I stared at the text message for a long time, waiting to feel some sense of satisfaction or vindication. Instead, I mostly felt sorry for Emma. She'd destroyed our relationship and stolen our shared savings for a fantasy that had never been real. The sophisticated man of the world she'd thought she was trading up for had turned out to be exactly what Tyler had predicted, a con artist who'd spotted an easy mark. Maya found me on my apartment balcony that evening, staring out at the Austin skyline with Tyler's text still open on my phone. "Want to talk about it?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. I showed her the message and watched her read it with a mixture of surprise and sadness. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Confused," I said honestly. I thought I'd feel happy about her getting what she deserved, but I just feel empty. Like the whole thing was such a waste of time and energy and emotion. "Maybe that's growth," Maya said. "Maybe feeling empty about your ex's drama means you've actually moved on." She was right, I realized. Emma's problems with Ryan weren't my problems anymore. Her financial troubles weren't my responsibility to solve. Her poor judgment had consequences, but those consequences belonged to her now, not to me. That night, Maya stayed over for the first time, not because of any dramatic declaration of love or passionate moment, but because it felt natural and right. We fell asleep watching terrible Netflix movies and woke up making breakfast together like we'd been doing it for years. Jake, Maya said as we sat on my couch drinking coffee and planning our weekend. I know this might sound crazy, but I think I'm falling in love with you. The words didn't scare me the way I'd expected them to. Instead, they felt like coming home. I don't think that's crazy at all, I replied. I think I've been falling in love with you for months. I was just too scared to admit it. We spent that weekend talking about everything we wanted for our future together. Maya's dream of starting her own design consultancy. My goal of eventually launching my own tech company. The possibility of buying a house together somewhere in Austin's rapidly growing suburbs. The difference was that these conversations felt real and achievable and based on mutual respect rather than fantasy and financial deception. A year after arriving in Austin, I was promoted to senior developer at Nexus AI, with a salary that would have seemed impossible back in Denver. Maya had landed a contract with a major retail chain to redesign their customer experience interface. We were both thriving professionally and personally, building something genuine together instead of trying to force compatibility where none existed. I'd learned to trust again, but more importantly, I'd learned to trust my own judgment. Maya showed me what it looked like when someone actually wanted to be with you, not just tolerate you while waiting for something better to come along. She celebrated my successes without resentment, supported me through challenges without making them about her, and shared her own dreams without expecting me to fund them at the expense of our mutual goals. Tyler visited for South by Southwest that spring. Meeting Maya confirmed what he'd been telling me over the phone for months. Dude, he said as we sat on a rooftop bar watching Maya network with other designers at an industry party, you realize you won the lottery, right? That woman is brilliant, beautiful, and actually enjoys your company. Emma never looked at you the way Maya looks at you. He was right. Emma had looked at me like I was a placeholder, someone to keep her company until her real life started. Maya looked at me like I was her real life, someone she'd chosen deliberately and wanted to build something lasting with. The irony wasn't lost on me that Emma's betrayal, as devastating as it had been at the time, had actually saved me from a much worse fate. If she hadn't stolen our money and run off with Ryan, I might have married her. I might have spent years trying to make someone happy who was fundamentally incapable of appreciating what I offered. Instead, her selfishness had freed me to find someone who actually valued loyalty, honesty, and partnership. 2 years after leaving Denver, Maya and I bought a house together in East Austin. Not because we needed to prove anything to anyone, but because we wanted to build equity together and create a space that reflected both of our personalities. The down payment came from money we'd both earned and saved together, with complete transparency about our individual and shared financial goals. Standing in our new backyard, watching Maya plant herbs in the garden beds she'd designed, I thought about the password to that joint account in Denver. Emma had used it to access money that was meant to build our future, converting our shared dreams into funding for her fantasy. But in the end, I'd given her access to something much more valuable, the password to single life. She'd traded a stable, loving relationship for expensive dinners and hotel rooms with a man who'd never had any intention of sticking around. Meanwhile, I'd found someone who didn't need access to my bank account to be happy. Maya had her own money, her own dreams, and her own plans for success. What she wanted from me wasn't financial support for an unsustainable lifestyle, but partnership in building something real and lasting together. The password to our joint account was something we'd chosen together, just like everything else in our relationship. And the best part was that I knew I'd never have to change it, because Maya would never give me a reason to doubt her access to any part of my life. But Emma's story wasn't over yet, and neither was mine. The final confrontation was still waiting. For us back in Denver, where Tyler's wedding would bring together everyone from our old life to witness just how different our paths had become, what happened that weekend would prove that sometimes the best revenge really is living well, and that the password to single life comes with a much higher price than anyone expects to pay. Tyler's wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. In March, delivered to our Austin home with elegant calligraphy addressing both Maya and me. After 2.5 years together, people had stopped thinking of us as separate entities. We were Jake and Maya, a unit, a team that friends automatically included in couples events and dinner parties. "So this is the famous Tyler Maya," said, examining the invitation over her morning coffee. "The one who helped you discover Emma's betrayal and supported you through the worst week of your life?" "The very same," I confirmed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness about returning to Denver. "He's marrying Jessica, this amazing woman he met at a rock climbing gym. They're perfect for each other in that way that makes you believe in soulmates." Maya smiled, but I could see the questions in her eyes. She'd never been to Denver, never met any of my old friends, never seen the life I'd built before everything fell apart. This wedding would be her introduction to my past, including the inevitable encounter with Emma that we both knew was coming. "Are you worried about seeing her again?" Maya asked gently. "Honestly, no," I said, surprising myself with how true that felt. "I'm more worried about you having to deal with the awkwardness. Emma doesn't know about you, doesn't know I'm happy, doesn't know anything about my life now. She's probably going to be shocked, and Emma doesn't handle shock well. Let her be shocked," Maya said with a slight edge to her voice that I rarely heard. "She gave up the right to have opinions about your life when she decided to steal from you and cheat on you." The flight to Denver felt different this time, instead of the defeated, heartbroken man who'd driven away 3 years earlier. I was returning as someone who'd rebuilt his entire existence from the ground up. Maya held my hand during takeoff, chatting excitedly about finally seeing the mountains and meeting the people who'd shaped my early adulthood. Tyler picked us up from the airport in his new truck, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Jake, man, you look incredible. Austin's been good to you." He turned to Maya with genuine warmth. "And you must be the famous Maya. Jake talks about you constantly." I was starting to think he'd made you up. "All good things, I hope," Maya replied, and I could see Tyler immediately understanding why I'd fallen for her. She had this way of making people feel comfortable and important within minutes of meeting them. "Mostly good," Tyler teased. "Though he did mention you're better at video games than he is," which honestly damaged his ego pretty severely. Spent the afternoon catching up at Tyler's house, a cozy craftsman bungalow he'd bought with Jessica 6 months earlier. Jessica turned out to be exactly as wonderful as Tyler had described. Intelligent, funny, and clearly head over heels. In love with my best friend. Watching them together reminded me why I'd been so devastated when Emma and I fell apart. This was what I'd thought we'd had, what I'd believed we were building toward. "So," Jessica said as we sat on their back deck, drinking craft beer from a local brewery, "Tyler told me about Emma. I know she's invited to the wedding because she's friends with some of my sorority sisters. Are you okay with that?" "More than okay," I said. "I'm actually curious to see how she's doing. Last I heard through the grapevine, things didn't work out with Ryan." Tyler snorted. That's putting it mildly. The guy completely disappeared. After maxing out her credit cards, it's left her with about $40,000 in debt and no way to pay it back. She had to move in with her parents and take a job at some marketing firm that pays half what she was making at Creative Pulse. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Karma has an interesting sense of timing." "Wedding's tomorrow," Jessica continued. "Emma RSVP'd, yes, but who knows if she'll actually show up." Amanda, her sister, said, "Emma's been pretty reclusive lately, embarrassed about the whole Ryan situation." That evening, Tyler and I went out for what he called a bachelor's last hurrah, even though his actual bachelor party had been a weekend camping trip the month before. We ended up at our old hangout spot, a dive bar called Murphy's that served the best wings in Denver and had pool tables that had seen better decades. "I have to ask," Tyler said as we waited for our food, "are you planning to marry Maya?" Question didn't surprise me. Tyler had never been one to dance around important topics. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I'm planning to propose after we get back to Austin. I've been looking at rings for months, trying to find something that matches her style without being obvious about it." "Good man," Tyler grinned. "She's perfect for you. Honestly, watching you two together this afternoon, I couldn't help thinking that Emma did you the biggest favor of your life by cheating on you. I've had the same thought, I admitted. If she hadn't stolen our money and run off with Ryan, I might have married her out of momentum. I might have spent years trying to make someone happy who was fundamentally incapable of appreciating what I offered. We played pool and caught up on 3 years of friendship conducted mostly through texts and phone calls. Tyler's business, a freelance graphic design company, was thriving. He'd bought the house, proposed to Jessica, and was considering expanding into web development. His life had continued moving forward, while mine had exploded and been rebuilt from scratch. You know what's funny? Tyler said as we walked back to his truck at the end of the night. Emma used to complain that you were too predictable, too boring, too content with simple things. But look at you now. You moved to a new city, built a successful career, found an amazing relationship, bought a house. You've had more adventures in 3 years than she probably will in her entire life. The wedding venue was a historic mansion in the foothills outside Denver, with panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains and gardens that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Maya wore a blue dress that complemented her dark hair perfectly, and I couldn't help but notice how other guests kept glancing our way, clearly wondering who the striking woman was that Jake from Tyler's college crew had brought as his date. The ceremony was beautiful, intimate, and completely authentic to Tyler and Jessica's relationship. They'd written their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams while building new ones together. When Tyler choked up talking about finding his adventure partner for life, I felt Maya squeeze my hand and knew she was thinking the same thing I was about our own future. During the cocktail hour, I introduced Maya to old friends and colleagues, watching her charm everyone she met with genuine interest in their lives and stories. She fit seamlessly into conversations about Denver's tech scene, local hiking trails, and the city's evolving food culture. Several people commented that they couldn't believe I'd been hiding such an amazing girlfriend for so long. She's not from here, I explained to Mark, an old coworker from TechFlow Solutions. We met in Austin. Maya's a UX designer who's doing incredible work with major retail brands. Austin, huh? Mark said. Smart move, getting out of Denver's tech scene when you did. The market here has gotten incredibly competitive. Half the startups from 5 years ago have already folded. Emma arrived during dinner, and I saw her before she saw me. She looked older, thinner, and there was something defeated in her posture that I'd never noticed before. Her dress was elegant, but not the expensive designer piece she would have worn 3 years earlier. She was alone, no date, and seemed uncomfortable. Navigating the social dynamics of the reception, when our eyes finally met across the room, Emma's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, confusion, and something that might have been regret. I nodded politely and turned my attention back to Maya, who was engaged in an animated conversation with Jessica's maid of honor about sustainable fashion. That's her, isn't it? Maya said quietly, during a lull in the conversation. That's her, I confirmed. She's pretty, Maya said, without any trace of jealousy or insecurity. But she looks sad. Really, genuinely sad. During the dancing portion of the evening, when Maya had gone to the restroom and I was alone for the first time all night, she looked nervous, fidgeting with her clutch purse and avoiding direct eye contact. Hi, Jake, she said softly. You look really good. Happy? Hi, Emma. I am happy. How are you doing? She laughed, but it sounded hollow. I've been better. I heard you moved to Austin. That's exciting. It's been good for me, I said, neutrally. New challenges, new opportunities. I also heard about Ryan, I added gently. I'm sorry that didn't work out the way you hoped. Emma's composure cracked slightly. Tyler told you? Tyler tells me a lot of things. But mostly, I'm just glad you're okay. I know things got complicated between us, but I never wanted you to get hurt. Complicated, Emma repeated with a bitter smile. That's one way to put it. Jake, I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the defensive garbage I spouted when you caught me. What I did to you, to us, it was inexcusable. I stole from you, lied to you, betrayed your trust in every possible way. And for what? For a man who was using me the same way I was using you. The apology was more than I'd expected. More honest than Emma had ever been during our relationship. But it also came 3 years too late to change anything meaningful. I appreciate you saying that, I said. But you don't owe me anything anymore, Emma. We both learned from what happened. You learned that actions have consequences, and I learned that I deserved better than someone who saw me as a backup plan. Maya returned from the restroom just as Emma was preparing to leave our table. The two women looked at each other with mutual curiosity and assessment. "Emma, this is Maya, my girlfriend." "Maya, this is Emma. Nice to meet you," Maya said, with genuine politeness. "Jake's told me about your shared history. I hope you're doing well." "Thank you," Emma replied, clearly struggling with the interaction. "You seem lovely." Jake's lucky to have found someone who appreciates him. After Emma walked away, Maya settled back into her chair and took a sip of her wine. "That was interesting," she said. "She really is sorry, isn't she?" "I think so," I said. "But being sorry doesn't undo the damage or change the choices she made. Some mistakes you just have to live with. Do you forgive her?" I considered the question carefully. I think I forgave her a long time ago, mostly for my own peace of mind. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust, and it doesn't mean I'd ever want her back in my life in any meaningful way. The reception continued around us, filled with laughter and dancing in celebration of Tyler and Jessica's new beginning, as I watched my best friend spinning his bride around the dance floor. Both of them glowing with happiness, I felt grateful for the journey that had brought me to this moment. Emma's betrayal had been devastating at the time, but it had also been necessary. It had forced me to leave my comfort zone, to discover who I was when I wasn't trying to hold together a relationship that was fundamentally broken. Maya and I danced to the final song of the evening, swaying slowly as the DJ played something romantic and timeless. In her arms, surrounded by friends celebrating love and commitment, I felt the last lingering traces of hurt and anger from my relationship with Emma finally dissolved completely. "Ready to go home to Austin?" Maya asked as the song ended. "More than ready," I said, though I think Tyler's right about one thing. Emma did me the biggest favor of my life by showing me who she really was before I made the mistake of marrying her. "Well then," Maya said with a smile that made my heart skip, "I guess we should send her a thank you card." The flight back to Austin felt like a victory lap. Maya dozed against my shoulder while I stared out the window at the landscape below, processing everything that had happened at Tyler's wedding. Seeing Emma again hadn't been traumatic or painful or even particularly emotional. It had been like running into an old coworker from a job you'd outgrown, someone who belonged to a different version of yourself that no longer existed. "Penny for your thoughts," Maya said, stirring awake as the plane began its descent into Austin Bergstrom International Airport. "I was thinking about how different I feel now compared to when I left Denver the first time," I said. "Back then, I was running away from something broken. This time I was just visiting as someone who'd built something better." Maya smiled and intertwined her fingers with mine. "Emma looked at you like she was seeing a ghost of what could have been. I almost felt sorry for her. Well, it's hard to feel too bad for someone who chose to throw away something good for something that was obviously too good to be true. But I could see the regret in her eyes. She knows she made a terrible mistake." We landed in Austin as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with this city. Driving home through neighborhoods we'd explored together, past restaurants where we'd shared meals and parks where we'd walked hand in hand, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life we'd built. Our house welcomed us back with the familiar scent of Maya's vanilla candles and the sight of her latest furniture restoration project, a 1950s dining table she'd been refinishing in the garage. Everything was exactly as we'd left it, but somehow it felt even more like home after seeing the life I'd left behind in Denver. "I have something I want to talk to you about," I said as we sat on our back porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the stars appear in the clear Texas sky. Maya turned to me with curiosity and perhaps a hint of concern. "That sounds serious." "It is serious," I said, pulling the small velvet box from my jacket pocket where I'd been carrying it for weeks. "Waiting for the right moment, Maya Patel. These past 2.5 years with you have been the best of my entire life. You've shown me what it means to be truly loved and appreciated for who I am, not who someone wants me to be." Her eyes widened as she saw the ring of vintage art, Deco design with a center stone surrounded by smaller diamonds in a geometric pattern that perfectly matched her aesthetic sensibilities. You've taught me that love isn't about finding someone to complete you, but about finding someone who inspires you to be the best version of yourself. You've been my partner in building a life I never imagined I could have, and I want to keep building it with you for the rest of our lives. I dropped to one knee on our back porch, surrounded by the herb garden she'd planted and the string lights we'd hung together on our first weekend in the house. Maya, will you marry me? Tears were streaming down her face, but she was laughing too. That combination of joy and emotion that I'd learned meant she was completely overwhelmed in the best possible way. Yes, she said, pulling me up and kissing me before I could even get the ring on her finger. Yes, absolutely. Completely. Yes. The ring fit perfectly, which wasn't surprising since I'd enlisted her best friend Priya to help me figure out her size months earlier. As Maya admired the way it caught the light from our porch lamp, I felt a satisfaction that went far deeper than just getting engaged. This was proof that patience and genuine love could create something beautiful and lasting. When did you buy this? Maya asked, still staring at her hand in amazement. 3 months ago, I admitted. I've been carrying it around, waiting for a moment that felt perfect. Something about coming back from Denver, from seeing that old life, and feeling completely at peace with leaving it behind, made tonight feel right. We spent the rest of the evening making calls to family and friends, sharing our news with people who'd watched our relationship develop and flourish. Tyler was the first person I called, and his whoops of excitement were so loud that Jessica could be heard cheering. In the background, "Dude, this is perfect timing," Tyler said. "Oh, we can plan joint couple vacations and argue about whose marriage is happier, no contest," I laughed. "You guys win the better wedding venue category, but we're definitely going to win the better honeymoon category." Maya had already started texting her family group chat, and within minutes my phone was buzzing with congratulatory messages from her parents, siblings, and extended family who'd embraced me as one of their own over the past 2 years. The next few months flew by in a whirlwind of wedding planning, work projects, and the general excitement that comes with building toward a major life milestone. Maya approached wedding planning the same way she approached everything else, with creativity, attention to detail, and an ability to make even the most stressful decisions feel like fun adventures. We chose a venue in the hill country outside Austin, a restored 1800s ranch with wildflower fields and ancient oak trees that would provide the perfect backdrop for photographs. Maya designed our invitations herself, creating elegant, minimalist cards that somehow managed to convey both sophistication and warmth. "I want our wedding to feel like the best dinner party we've ever thrown," she told me as we toured potential caterers. "Good food, great music, and people we genuinely want to celebrate with." The guest list was smaller than what Emma and I had planned back in Denver, but infinitely more meaningful. Maya's family would fly in from Phoenix. My parents would drive down from Colorado for the first time since I'd moved to Texas, and Tyler would serve as my best man, while Priya would be Maya's maid of honor. Work continued to be fulfilling and challenging. The Nexus AI project I'd been leading had attracted attention from major investors. Marcus was talking about expanding the company to handle demand from clients across multiple industries. Maya's design consultancy had grown to the point where she was considering hiring additional freelancers to help manage her workload. "We're both at a point where we could take some major career risks," Maya said one evening as we discussed our 5-year plans. "Your AI expertise is valuable enough that you could probably start your own company if you wanted to. And I've been thinking about pitching my services to some Silicon Valley firms that are looking for remote design talent." "What kind of risks are you thinking about?" I asked. "Well, what if we started a company together? Your technical skills and my design background could be a powerful combination. We could build applications that are both functionally brilliant and intuitively beautiful." The idea excited me immediately. I was working with Maya every day, combining our different but complementary skill sets, building something from the ground up that belonged entirely to us. It felt like the natural evolution of everything we'd been creating together. "I love it," I said, "though we should probably wait until after the wedding to make any major business decisions. I don't want to be stressed about both a startup and a marriage at the same time." "Agreed," Maya laughed. "One major life change at a time." 6 weeks before our wedding, I got an unexpected email that reminded me how far I'd come from the broken man who'd driven away from Denver 3 years earlier. The message was from a law firm in Colorado, informing me that Emma was facing criminal charges related to credit card fraud and asking if I wanted to pursue charges related to the money she'd stolen from our joint account. According to the attorney, Emma's financial troubles had escalated significantly after Ryan's disappearance. In addition to the debt he'd helped her accumulate, she'd apparently started using company credit cards for personal expenses and had been caught falsifying expense reports at her new job. The total amount of fraud was substantial enough that criminal charges were being pursued regardless of whether I chose to add my case to the prosecution. I stared at the email for a long time, trying to decide how I felt about Emma's continued downward spiral. The money she'd stolen from me had been significant at the time, but my life had improved so dramatically since then that the financial loss felt almost irrelevant. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined possible, engaged to an incredible woman, and building a future that far exceeded anything Emma and I had planned together. Maya found me sitting at our kitchen table with my laptop open, reading the email for the third time. "Bad news?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. I showed her the email and watched her expression shift from curiosity to concern, to something resembling pity. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm not sure," I said honestly. Part of me thinks Emma should face consequences for what she did to me, not just for the recent stuff. But another part of me feels like pursuing charges would be more about revenge than justice. And I don't want revenge anymore. What does your gut tell you? My gut tells me that Emma is already facing the consequences of her choices. She lost me. She lost Ryan. She lost her job, her financial stability, her reputation. Adding my case to her legal problems wouldn't give me any satisfaction, and it wouldn't undo the damage she caused. It would just make her situation worse without making mine any better. So you're not going to pursue charges? I don't think. So, I said, I'm going to write back to the attorney and decline to participate. Emma's punishment isn't my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to keep building this amazing life with you. Maya kissed my forehead, and I felt the last remaining thread connecting me to my painful past with Emma finally snap. I was completely free of that relationship and its aftermath, free to focus entirely on the future I was creating with someone who actually deserved my trust and love. The weeks leading up to our wedding were filled with final preparations, family visits, and the kind of excited anticipation that comes with knowing you're about to make the best decision of your life. Maya's parents arrived a week early and immediately embraced me as the son-in-law they'd been hoping for. My own parents, who'd been largely absent during my childhood and the Emma crisis, seemed genuinely happy about my engagement and impressed with the life I'd built in Austin. "You seem different," my mother said as we sat on our back porch the night before the wedding. "More confident, more settled." "Maya's been good for you." "Maya's been everything for me," I said. "But I think the confidence comes from learning that I can trust my own judgment about people. No, Maya loves me for who I am, not for what I can provide or how I can be useful to her." The morning of our wedding dawned clear and perfect, the temperatures in the mid-70s and a gentle breeze that made the wildflowers in the meadow dance like they were celebrating along with us. As I stood at the altar waiting for Maya to walk down the aisle, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about our happiness, I thought about the password to that joint account in Denver and how Emma had used it to access money meant for our future. But Maya and I didn't need joint passwords or shared accounts to build our life together. We had something much more valuable: mutual respect, honest communication, and a love that had grown stronger through challenges rather than being destroyed by them. When Maya appeared at the end of the aisle in a dress she'd designed herself, looking radiant and sure and completely ready to become my wife, I knew that giving Emma the password to single life had been the best investment I'd ever made. Maya and I said our vows under an arch of native Texas wildflowers while 60 of our closest family members and friends watched with tears in their eyes. When she promised to be my partner in all adventures, big and small, I thought about how Emma had once called me too boring for adventures. Maya had shown me that the greatest adventure was building a life with someone who truly wanted to share it. Our first dance was to a song Maya had chosen, something about finding home in another person's arms rather than in a place. As we swayed together on the dance floor we'd installed in the meadow, I whispered in her ear, "Thank you for seeing something in me worth loving." "Thank you for being something worth loving," she whispered back. The reception was everything Maya had envisioned, elegant but comfortable, sophisticated but genuine. Toast brought down the house when he told the story of how I'd called him from Austin 6 months after moving there, gushing about this amazing woman I'd met who made database optimization sound romantic. Priya's maid of honor speech made everyone cry when she described watching Maya transform from someone who'd given up on finding real love to someone who glowed with happiness every time she mentioned my name. As the evening wound down and our guests began saying their goodbyes, Maya and I stood together on the venue's wraparound porch, watching the last few couples dancing under string lights that looked like captured stars. "No regrets?" I asked, adjusting her veil which had gotten slightly askew during our final dance. "Only that we didn't meet sooner," she said, then reconsidered. "Actually, no. We met exactly when we were supposed to. You needed to go through what you went through with Emma to become the man I fell in love with. And I needed my own journey to become someone ready for this kind of partnership." She was right. The man who'd lived with Emma, who'd tolerated being taken for granted and dismissed, wouldn't have been ready for Maya's intensity and ambition. Emma's betrayal had forced me to develop strength and independence I'd never known I possessed. 6 months after our wedding, Maya and I launched our company, Harmony Tech, from our dining room table. Our first product was an application that helped small business owners visualize their financial data in ways that made sense to people without accounting degrees. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now helping others avoid the kind of financial blindness that had allowed Emma to steal from our joint account. The business grew faster than we'd anticipated. Within 18 months, we'd moved into a proper office space, hired for employees, and were fielding calls from investors interested in funding our expansion. Maya's designs made complex financial concepts accessible and beautiful, while my algorithms processed data with speed and accuracy that impressed even seasoned finance professionals. "We make a good team," Maya said one evening as we reviewed our quarterly numbers, which showed profits that exceeded our most optimistic projections. "We make a great team," I corrected. Pulling her close on the couch, we'd moved into our office for late-night work sessions. 3 years after our wedding, Tyler called with news that didn't surprise me, but still provided a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Emma had been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for the credit card fraud and embezzlement charges. She'd lost her apartment, her car, and apparently what remained of her relationship with her family, who'd grown tired of her excuses and lies. "I thought you should know," Tyler said, "though I figured you probably wouldn't want to gloat about it." "I don't," I said honestly. "I feel sorry for her. She threw away everything real in her life, chasing fantasies that were never going to last." Maya, who was listening from across our home office, nodded approvingly. We'd built our relationship on honesty and transparency. Discussing even uncomfortable topics like my past with Emma, she knew that my lack of anger toward my ex wasn't about lingering feelings, but about genuine healing and growth. That same week, we got news that put Emma's situation in even sharper perspective. Maya was pregnant with our first child, a development that filled us both with excitement and determination to be the kind of parents we'd both needed growing up. "This baby is going to be so loved," Maya said as we sat in the doctor's office, staring at the first ultrasound image of our child. "This baby is going to have parents who keep their promises to each other," I added, thinking about the joint savings account Maya and I had opened for our future children's education. Unlike the account Emma had raided, this one represented genuine shared goals and mutual trust. By the time our daughter Sophia was born, Harmony Tech had expanded to 3 offices across Texas and was processing financial data for over 10,000 small businesses nationwide. Maya took maternity leave, but continued designing user interfaces from home, finding ways to make our software even more intuitive for busy entrepreneurs who needed financial insights without complexity. Holding Sophia in the hospital room while Maya slept, I thought about the password to that joint account in Denver that had started this entire journey. Emma had used those digits to access money that wasn't really hers, converting our shared dreams into funding for her selfish desires. But in doing so, she'd inadvertently given me access to something much more valuable. The knowledge that I deserved better, the courage to start over, and eventually, the path to finding Maya. The password to single life that Emma had claimed turned out to be far more expensive than she'd calculated. She'd paid with her integrity, her relationships, her freedom, and ultimately her future. Meanwhile, the password to the life Maya and I shared wasn't stored in any bank account or written down anywhere. It was built into who we'd become together, two people who'd chosen each other deliberately, built something beautiful through honest work, and never forgot that the best security came from trust rather than access codes.
Ow.
Sophia gurgled in her sleep, and I gently traced her tiny fingers with mine, promising her silently that she'd grow up in a home where love wasn't conditional, where trust wasn't a luxury, and where the passwords to everything important would always be earned, rather than stolen. Maya stirred awake and smiled at the sight of her. Husband and daughter together in the morning light streaming through the hospital window, ready to go home, she asked. More than ready, I said, understanding that home wasn't the house we'd bought or the city we'd chosen, but this family we'd created through patience, honesty, and the kind of love that multiplied rather than diminished when shared. Emma had given me the password to single life, but Maya had given me something infinitely better, the password to a life worth living. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.